Protect yourself on the internet with the only VPN to receive a perfect score from PC Mag. And you get 70% off for the next 3 years. Head to nordvpn.com/TYT right now, and you also get a free month on us.
Remember when Rashida Tlaib said that she was going to impeach the MFer and everyone had a heart attack and made a big deal about it and talked about the profanity and how ridiculous it was to bring up the idea of impeachment? Well, fast forward to today, and you have a segment on CNN that gives moderate Democratic freshman women credit for being supportive of impeachment. Take a look.
Even before they were elected,
you have adopted the badass label.
These freshman congresswomen created their own group, the Badasses.
We were out running for Congress, across the country. Then we kept running into each other. Badasses kind of came organically from the group, since we all had either served in the military or in the CIA.
A band of sisters who bonded while storming the unfamiliar terrain of politics. Translating their service is exactly what they did with their 180 on starting an impeachment inquiry. Going from no to yes after hearing President Trump admit he spoke to Ukraine's leader about Joe Biden. Others followed suit, including the House Speaker.
I think we all sort of came to that conclusion together. We texted each other, and I think we were all going, okay, I think this has all changed. This is a bright line.
Backing an impeachment inquiry is risky political business for these congresswomen.
No, this is amazing. This is one of the most amazing segments I've ever seen. So they're giving these women who signed on to impeachment late in the game all this credit. And apparently now there are Johnny Come Lately awards.
Yeah.
Right?
So
these 5 freshman congresswomen changed history by becoming unlikely leaders on impeachment. How are you a leader on impeachment if you didn't lead on impeachment? So what does it mean to be a leader? Let's talk about that real quick. Let's just look at something very simple, the definition of lead. What does it mean to lead? To guide on a way, especially by going in advance.
Yeah.
In advance.
This would seem to be the opposite. They were the last ones on board. You see that? Profiles in courage, badasses. So look, I'd have nothing against these women, and thank God they won. And I like the way some of them campaigned. Abigail Spanberger, we talked about on the show. She was great in the debates against her Republican opponent. She took no quarter. I like her fighting attitude. I don't agree with all of her policies. I'm more progressive than she is. So it's not about them, and it's not about putting them down. And I'm thrilled that they came to the right conclusion. And yes, Nancy Pelosi listens to conservative Democrats 1,000 times more than she listens to progressives. So that part is true. And so if you framed it that way, like, hey, they finally got there, and it actually tipped the balance because Pelosi pretty much hates progressives and dismisses them. But if it's a conservative Democrat, she's like, oh, wait a minute. If conservatives are in favor, okay, maybe I'm more interested. And then you can give the nuance of, look, they're in a tough district and it's more purple than their district, et cetera. So they deserve credit for having that kind of courage.
Sure.
Then there would be nothing wrong with that report.
Yeah, look, okay, so I'm glad you made that distinction because I feel like I'm coming off too harsh and it seems misdirected toward these congresswomen. It's not about the congresswomen, it's about how all of this is framed and how they are being celebrated as badasses and leaders on the impeachment front when that's just not the case. And then when you consider that and juxtapose it to the way the freshman Democrats in the squad have been treated, it's infuriating and ridiculous. But
so there's on that front, and I know there's a lot of critique we're gonna get to in a second, but it feels a little white savory, right? Like here comes the white savior, and all the hard work that these young minority women did. Not only are we not going to give them credit, but we criticized them in the beginning. And so we gave them bad press for being leaders. Now here comes the white saviors coming in and we're gonna give them amazing press to say they saved the day, as if it was their idea in the first place. And again, I would be fine with it if it was more fair, just, equal, and they gave the context of these amazing women led the fight, the squad, AOC, Justice Democrats, et cetera. And Rashida Tlaib, very importantly, right? And then this was the cavalry. Okay, well then we're having an interesting conversation or a tipping point, etc. But framing it like they're and then to criticize Rashida Tlaib a billion times. I know we're gonna show you more on that for her language, and then to celebrate with glowing lights, badasses, because it's so cool when conservatives do it.
To be fair, they refer to themselves as badasses. They've named themselves that.
I know, but instead of criticizing them for it, like they did with Tlaib, they celebrated. And if you notice, even the script, like the way that they are writing their names in the CNN piece is like rebellish.
Yeah, so Brett made a great point. It's very Beverly Hills Cops.
Oh, that's interesting. I was thinking more Sin City.
Oh, okay.
Okay, but like, no.
Okay, we got so many more videos, so yeah. With that said, let's go to the next clip of CNN celebrating the badasses.
They represent swing districts, very different from another more famous female freshman group, the Squad.
Okay, so I'm just gonna put it out there. The group of freshman females that people know about is the Squad. Are you guys the anti-Squad?
What I tell people in my district, the left wing of our party has created such momentum behind things like moving forward on our environment.
None of us is ever gonna get in a Twitter war with anyone else. If we have a concern with someone, we're gonna go right up and talk to them about it. And we're not going to add unhelpful rhetoric to an already bad tone coming out of Washington. I don't think any of us wanna be the loudest voice in the room. I just wanna be one of the most effective.
So none of us are going to engage in a Twitter war. We're gonna go right up to someone's face and tell them exactly what our issues are. We're gonna work it out, woman to woman, man to man, whatever, woman to man. Except you just badmouth freshman Democrats that you disagree with during this CNN segment.
Oh, it's a devastating point. I hadn't even considered that.
It's just,
and it's right there. You're right. It's brazen. Okay, but also, actually, that's bad political strategy. If you say, hey, if I disagree with, let's say, a Republican, and so I went up and told him to his face, but I didn't say it in front of cameras, well, then it did no good at all. Maybe it made you feel better, but you have to make your case publicly, otherwise you cannot persuade voters. It's actually one of the things that Democratic leadership gets wrong on a very consistent basis. Hey, let's not challenge Republicans publicly because, well, then people might find out what we think. That's a terrible political strategy.
Yeah, look, as a politician, especially in an incredibly divisive time, you need to use any and all tools at your disposal. Social media is a tool. Press conferences, it's a tool. Going on cable news and making your point, making your case on a particular political issue, that's a tool. So like this idea of, I'm very high class and I don't engage in social media wars. No, but sometimes you can use your social media following and that platform as a way to apply pressure to get things done.
100%, and so understand the real problem there for them, which is that it's not that they don't do it. For example, if you're talking about it within the Democratic Party, if that's the only thing that they're talking about, well, Nancy Pelosi called the Green New Deal Green Dream or whatever. She called those just Democratic women for people, and that's all they are. On Medicare for All, she goes and attacks it behind the scenes, and then again publicly she attacked it. So what they're not saying don't fight amongst each other within the Democratic Party. They're saying only use the media that we control. So you could do it on CNN, you could do it on 60 Minutes, but don't go to the people. If you go use Twitter or social media, you're going to the people, and that's not fair. We control the gatekeepers, and going through the gatekeepers is fair because they're gonna shut you up and they're gonna criticize you and they're gonna make heroes out of us, right?
Yeah.
So that's what they're actually crying about. And so, look, it's so ironic because I like their position. They didn't have to go and criticize the Justice Democrats and progressives. I don't think CNN did them any favors here. They think that they got made look like heroes, but there's a reason why we didn't hear about them before, because they're not shouting their policies from the rooftops. So
and they're not leading on these types of issues. And one other thing, look, that last statement about we don't want to be the loudest voices in the room, right? So she's specifically referring to members of the Squad, all women of color, being the loudest voices in the room and how that's not an effective way of communicating. I just doesn't play well, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, it doesn't, and a lot of people are upset about it. I'm gonna come back to that in 1 second, but she also said, I'm sorry, one of the other, so Spanberger said that, but I think Slotkin said, it's unhelpful rhetoric and it sets a bad tone in Washington. Wait, but that unhelpful rhetoric is what pushed everyone towards impeachment, which now you're taking credit for. So I would argue it was pretty helpful. And you're while taking credit for the impeachment, you are criticizing the people who started that fight by saying it was a bad tone. Shame on Rashida Tlaib for her bad tone. Now give me all the credit for the movement she started, right?
Yep.
And so look, going back to the race issue, I think it's a legitimate point. People bring it up. I mentioned White Savior earlier. You talked about, and people have written articles about it now, saying, what do you mean loudest voice? And a lot of this has racial undertones. So you can go in that direction. But if you don't want to go in that direction, because that's a touchy topic for you or whatever reason, to me, at least as important is these moderate to conservative Democrats coming in saying it was our idea. No, it wasn't. No, and CNN don't do that. You have to at least give the proper context, because if you don't, it's making it seem like you're doing this giant PR effort on the people who were the latest, who were the most reluctant, the most scared to go into this fight. And because they came in at the end, you could celebrate them for coming to the right conclusion at the end, but you cannot pretend it was them while bad-mouthing the people who actually started it.
One more clip from the CNN segment on the badasses.
Their previous service taught them to be fearless, which comes in handy now.
There's not a vertical chain of command structure, so at previous.
Well, there is, but obviously it sounds like you guys aren't following it.
No, but no one can fire us.
But they are following it. I'm glad they came to the conclusion that they came to. I'm glad that they support impeachment. I have nothing against them in particular, other than the framing of this segment and their willingness to take credit for something that they know they don't deserve credit for. They are not leaders on this issue. We know who the leaders on this issue are. We know how they've been treated by the media over and over again for their support for impeachment, for wanting to hold Donald Trump accountable. I mean, they've been completely destroyed in the media over and over again. And so it's just frustrating because, and for me in particular, like this whole American celebration of failing upward, it drives me nuts because the people who deserve credit where credit is due are usually brushed off to the side, and then the people who, the Johnny-come-latelys, in this case, these congresswomen, they get all the support, they get this lovely segment put together for them by CNN, and it's just unacceptable. We know who the real leaders are, and we're about to celebrate them in just a second. But before we do, Cenk, do you want to
Yeah, last thoughts on this is hashtag Rashida was right. And at a bare minimum, just for God's sake, do an equally fawning one of Rashida. All you guys ever did was criticize her. And so now you're painting these women as, quote, in the last segment you saw there, fearless. No, they were filled with fear because of their district and crossing Republicans. And at the last second, they got past their fear. By the way, it's also counterproductive when you say, and they said it throughout this piece, oh, this is the thing that made it clear. It makes it seem like what Trump did in breaking the other laws, whether it's the constitutional violations, the Monuments Clause or the campaign finance, and the hush money and the obstruction of justice, all that, it makes it seem like, oh, that wasn't crimes and that wasn't important. But now that he did Ukraine, that's an actual crime. And so it's actually unhelpful rhetoric, and it's definitely not fearless. And if you notice, and this is the real thing that the mainstream media does most, they're military. So bow down, everybody. Oh, that is acceptable. These young women, remember when they first came up, the AOC and the Just Democrats? Who do they think they are?
Yep.
Doing a sit-in at Pelosi's office, demanding committee seats. They haven't earned their dues. Whereas, same situation here. These are freshman congresswomen that CNN is celebrating. And they're saying, fearless and part of the military and the CIA. Well, that's why they did it. So look, at a bare minimum, very tone deaf.
So let's go ahead and celebrate the fearless women in Congress who have been fighting and leading on this issue. This is a video put together by our very own J.R. Jackson. Credit where credit is due. Take a look.
Democratic Congresswoman Maxine Waters at it again, renewing her call to impeach President Trump.
There's a difference in how some of our leadership talk about how we should handle all of this. They say, Maxine, please don't say impeachment anymore. And when they say that, I say impeachment, impeachment, impeachment.
And when your son looks at you and says, Mama, look, you won, bullies don't win. And I said, baby, they don't, because we're gonna go in there, we're gonna impeach the
Does this change the calculus on impeachment?
Every day that passes, the pressure to impeach grows, and I think that it's justifiable. This is now about the rule of law in the United States of America.
Since the day that I'd gotten elected, I'd said to people, it is not if he will be impeached, but when. It's time for us to impeach this president.
If you thought the president had committed impeachable offenses, this is October of last year, and your answer was yes. Where are you the day after Mueller?
I have felt for a long time that this administration has lost all moral authority, and there are many impeachable offenses. For people that wonder, should we be expending this much sweat equity on something that might not be plausible? Yes, we should. But is that,
you mean?
Absolutely.
So these are women who supported impeachment even before Joe Biden was involved in any of these issues. And look, really, what was the thing that fired up establishment Democrats the most when it came to the Russia investigation? Why is it that they didn't really care too much to look into Donald Trump's financial crimes and they were hyper-focused on Russian meddling instead? Because they're concerned about how Trump's actions are gonna hurt establishment Democrats. And in the case of Joe Biden, it's the same thing. I mean, Trump is reaching out to the Ukrainian president in an effort to dig up dirt on an establishment Democrat, Joe Biden. Yeah. That is what fires them up, right? Whereas, these incredible congresswomen who have been leaders in the impeachment movement, they're not persuaded simply by, is an establishment Democrat gonna get hurt? They're persuaded by wanting to, preserve the rule of law.
Yeah, and credit, by the way, to Al Green, too, who's been a huge leader in impeachment. Bless his heart for that. And Maxine Waters not only deserves a gigantic credit, but even to this day, literally in the news today, they're yelling at her again because she said Trump should go to prison and get solitary confinement. They're saying, it's not civil, it's not helpful. The beloved CIA and military started this. The former military people that are in Congress, bow down, Maxine. Why are you being a leader again, right? And so, and of course, the 4 Just Democrats, hashtag Rashida was right, and Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Pressley, AOC, you saw them all there. And one last thing about that, as you realize the Just Democrats did the right thing here and led, when you see new Justice Democrats coming, you will hear the Democratic Party yell at them again and go, challenging incumbents, how dare they? They should know their role. No, it's not their turn. Understand that is lies meant to keep the establishment in power and not have strong people representing the voters. And you see, when we put real representatives in Congress, what happened? We got results. Do it again. Now, more about how you can save 70% off of military-grade encryption from NordVPN. Just simply head over to nordvpn.com/TYT to keep yourself protected from prying eyes. And for a short time only, use the code TYT to get an extra month off of Nord for free. Thanks for watching.